My name is Chris LeSueur. I'm a product manager on the apps team in Redlands, and this is Marika Versonis. She is on our team in Melbourne, Australia. She's a product engineer for AppStudio. So welcome to AppStudio for ArcGIS, build apps for all devices. As you might have seen, we were trying to get a little video playing. Audio wasn't working. It's available on the web. It's just a nice little introduction to AppStudio. But thank you for coming, and let's get right into it. I'll go over the agenda for today. I think we'll probably have what looks definitely like a full house today. So if you can scooch in on the sides or move in a little bit and let people have a space, or some of you are just going to prefer to stand most likely. But as an introduction, we're gonna go talk about AppStudio, what it is, why we built it, what problems it solves. And we're going to kind of do show some examples of AppStudio, kind of a tour of apps that have been built with AppStudio. Then I will go over building apps from our templates and kind of the process and a demonstration of how to use our templates out there to build out apps without any coding, just purely from configuring templates. Then we'll go into some of the customization options. This is not heavily on. We don't go deep into code and customization. This is really an overview showing how to build without code, but we will show a little bit of code and the development tools on that. If you're interested in writing custom apps with some custom code with AppStudio, we have a session at 1:30 today, AppStudio Advanced, which will go into that. At the end, we'll discuss a little bit about licensing, the different levels of AppStudio, difference between basic and standard, and then what's coming, what we're going to be working on for the rest of the year. So AppStudio for ArcGIS. First of all, who here considers himself a developer? Let's get kind of a show of hands. Okay, great. Who's a JavaScript developer, I would say? Okay. Who here considers themselves a GIS professional that can hack a little bit of code and copy and paste code here and there and to say, look at that, wow, that's and that's me, and that's myself, and that's Marika as well, and that's great. I think that's the perfect audience for AppStudio. Perfect. So. Let's talk a little bit about AppStudio. I think it's going to fit many of you a nice sweet spot for your skills and being productive and creating apps. So, just I don't need to spend a lot of time on this. We talk about we've been showing kind of this slide for a couple of years. As in the last 8 years, there's been this app revolution where people are just really accessing apps. Are accessing services and accessing the internet through their devices through apps. I mean, it's not just common. It's the standard. It's the way many people. That is. They don't even use their computer anymore. They use their smartphone or their tablet. They don't have a laptop anymore. They don't need one. They're working with apps so often, and this idea of having your information, your whether that's just textual information or maps or pictures, you have them with you, anywhere, anytime, any device, and it's become a reality for many of us. I'll talk a little about the dominance of native apps, and native apps as compared to web apps. A native app is an app that installs, as a native application on your device. It runs not in a browser. It runs as a separate application. It takes advantage of some of the capabilities of the device. And we've seen a growing trend. This is some statistics from Flurry Analytics. They follow smartphones and tablet device usage. That in 2015, that people spent 90% of their time on their smartphones and tablets using native apps, as opposed to working in a web browser on their device. So 90% of the time they're accessing those services through native apps. Think about think about some of the services you might use on a regular basis, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. I could add on Instagram, maybe Snapchat. I don't use Snapchat. Do you use Snapchat? No. But people use Snapchat. WhatsApp, whatever. Just all these services that you use on your smartphone, and think about that and how okay, if I want to check up on my Facebook feed or whatever, or my Twitter feed, do I go to the, launch my Chrome or Safari browser on the device and type in www.twitter.com and get a little login, you log in and see your information? Now, granted, these companies have gotten better about this. The mobile web has gotten better and the experience isn't too bad, but we still prefer a native experience. We still prefer something that's installed. I've already logged into it. Click the icon, boom, it comes up, and I'm good to go. So there's various reasons why that experience is better for us and why to build native apps. First is performance, and performance goes along with just being able to utilize the CPU and the GPU of the devices, and it gives us and it kind of goes on to the second bullet point. There is a better user experience. It's just more fluid. It feels more natural. It feels something we want to use. It's something and we've become accustomed to that. Just responsive, nice apps. We also have access to features on the device. Some of these are the hardware features. Some are the operating systems capabilities. The GPS and compass, getting access to those. The camera, the contacts on the device. If you want to have permissions to access other things like contacts and things. Also, being able to share through the operating system to share some text through MMS or through SMS or email or other capabilities. So there's a lot of advantages of being a native app on a device, and you can take advantage of these things. Really, I think for GIS people, these are, and I think for many in this audience, these are some of the big reasons why you want a native app. And the first is that the capability to go offline. So with AppStudio, you can create a custom app, and we have samples for that to take your data offline, and it doesn't require to be connected. So going offline is a big deal for many people. Also, that performance is a big deal. Just being able to draw all the thousands of points very quickly or such. That's a big deal for a lot of people, and just giving that nice also user experience and fluidity of working with the app. And then the last one there is app stores, and app stores are important for many people. There's going to be some people in here who are like, we have some apps I want to build for my organization, and we don't care about the app stores. We're not going to publish to the app stores. We're just going to put them through the organization, and that's great. And that is a use case that AppStudio works well with. But for many of you and others out there, is that the app stores are really important, because it's how you get your brand out there. It's how people find you. We used to say, 15, 20 years ago, hey, your company or your organization was not on the map until you had a website. People had to, they heard about you, they were going to just go into a search engine and find you, or just type in your company name and see where you are. You must have a website. Everyone has a website. And we're seeing this, I expect I don't even, my bank has to have apps in the stores. It's expected. My city, I expect my city to have apps in the app stores. That I don't go to the city's website to check to see if they have apps. No, I'm just going to go to the app store directly and search for. I live in Redlands, city of Redlands, and see, they must surely have apps out there. So it's become expected, and it's the way people just go to the app stores first and look to see if you have things out there. I want to talk a little bit about some companies that have some apps. Real briefly in the app stores. First is Vic Roads and Vic Roads mobile apps. These are from Australia, and these are traffic apps that show you, the status of roads, the traffic status, and information like that. So, give you some map view and this, live information coming in from the roads. We have another example is the city of Riverside. They have a few different apps. Like a 311 app to call in information if you find things out there that you want to report to the city. A Explore Riverside app that will show you different locations, kind of a tour around the city and different locations and what's cool and neat. City of Riverside's a customer of Esri. They're not too, just about 20 minutes away from Esri headquarters. And then LA City Works, they have an app to show what's the current projects, where they are, and the status of those. And these are three organizations that have apps out there published, and the problem, or not the problem, the one thing that's a little concerning to us is that all these apps, these are all Esri customers, all these three organizations, Esri users, Esri customers, but they built these apps, there's no Esri technology in these apps, and not only that, they didn't consult the GIS professionals in their organization at all about these. We went through a totally different track. The GIS people had no idea, even though that's it, yeah. It's one of those, I think it's one of those cool green jewel beetles. They're totally harmless, everybody. If it lands on you, don't freak out. I love those things. I love those things. I used to mow the lawn, they'd always buzz around me when I was mowing the lawn, yeah, okay. It's a green jewel beetle, that's what I call them. I don't know if they have a different scientific name. Anyway, okay. We'll, where was I at? Oh, so these organizations, none of them, they didn't consult the GIS department when they built these really map-based. There's a map component to all of these apps. They thought, their minds, those GIS guys, they're downstairs in the basement, they're indexing SDE databases. What do they know about building apps for the app stores? But we want to turn that around. I mean, many of us we have the maps, we have the data, and let's empower everyone here to create some apps and get them published. But there are some challenges with this. App development is complicated. It can be expensive and time consuming. Who here is a Objective-C iOS developer? We got one. That's good. Do you spend more time doing GIS or iOS development? iOS. I think that's mostly the case. It's hard to be a 80% GIS guy and a 20% Objective-C developer. It's not common, and it's difficult to do. It's a skill. It's a definite skill, and it's something you have to keep up with and working on. And who here has outsourced an organization to build an app for you? Was it cheap? Yeah, no, I don't think. No one's ever told me, it was really cheap. We just they did it for nothing. It can be. It's expensive often. And it's time consuming. It's a complicated process. And obviously, the last one, time. App development can be very time consuming, and all of our time is valuable. And then another big challenge is which platforms are you going to hit? You're going to do iOS and Android most likely. You might also want to do Windows. A chance for Mac and Linux, probably less of a chance, but hey, you might have a unique customer base or need. So you have that 5 times the code to hit all these different platforms. And we like to say that the solution or a solution is AppStudio for ArcGIS. And this is a tool to build cross-platform apps that can be published in the app stores or distributed across a enterprise organization. So let's go. Marika is going to do a quick tour of a few of the apps out there, just so you don't hear me talking in slides the whole time. Let's do a quick tour and see some apps that have been built with AppStudio. You're on number 1.
So every icon that you see here is an app that was built with AppStudio and is available in the store. Some of them were put in the store by Esri, but some of them are by customers. So it's not a bad little portfolio.
No. And there's others out there we don't know about.
Yeah, these are only the ones we know about. So I'll show you a demo of a few of them. This one here is the Allegheny County Trails app. And they had a number of trails. The idea really is to be able to search, view, and use this in the field. So at the top here, I'm going to select a park. You can choose from any of their parks. Once selected, the map will zoom to the park and show all of the trails that are available. If I then select one of the trails, the bottom half of the screen is going to give me a summary of the information about it. It'll tell me the difficulty level, the type of trail, the length. If I slide here to the right, I actually get an elevation profile of the trail. Turn the device, I get a little bit of a better view. If I'm actually at the park and I have my location sensor enabled, it'll actually show me where I am while I'm actually at the trail. You can see they've also got a weather feed coming through into the app here. Oops.
I'll just hold that for you.
Thank you. So pretty simple, very targeted use. This is very specifically for somebody who's experiencing the trails in the area. So pretty targeted, pretty slick looking. I think they've even got help. There we go, we've even got help. So that's one of the apps. It's in the store.
Just for iOS?
No, it's in the Android store as well. Let's have a look. What else have we got? This app here was built for the city of Abu Dhabi. They want to know my location, which is probably not going to help considering the apps in the UAE. They took a number of our templates and modified them. If I get rid of the UI. But what they did is they changed the way the UI, and they've introduced their own menu system. So it's quite unique to their app, not something that you will see in everyone. The issue they were trying to handle was how do they get a lot of icons and a lot of tools in a small space without crowding out the map. So you can see this little exploded menu over on the left-hand side. They actually have the ability to scan QR codes. So a lot of the signs and assets around the city have actually got a QR code, and the idea is, we don't have one to scan, but you can scan the QR code and that will perform a search within their app. The last demo I'll show is actually one of the ones that we've created here at Esri, and Chris is going to actually show you how to go away and build this app. This was a Palm Springs map tour. It's available in the store, so if you want to download it and follow along, you can. And the idea is by using one of the story map templates of the map tour type, you can build your map tour in online and then reuse that and create a native app experience of that same tour. So here you can see there's a list of places that you can browse, choose, learn some more information about it, scroll the index of places, and obviously switch back to the map. You can also navigate via the map to other features in the tour.
Perfect. All right, that was a nice tour of some of the apps out there. There's others available, as you can see, published today. And those are those that have been published to the app stores, and some others choose not to publish to the app stores. They deploy through their enterprise and other ways of doing that. Just a quick some bullet points on really what is AppStudio. It's a way to configure and add your own branding to apps. It's a platform to build cross-platform apps for your and systems. There's no development skills required, and I'm going to show that in a minute. But developers will like it too. I mean, really I got the most out of it, and to really make it your own, you probably a little bit of development skills, and that's a sliding scale of I can copy and paste some sample code and change this and that to starting from scratch and developing. So yeah, you can use, as I said, use templates to build your own and deploy to the stores or in your organization. Actually, I'm going to talk a little bit about, before I go too far, I think this will help set up the next couple sections, is the licensing levels of AppStudio. We have, AppStudio is the product, and there's two levels of licensing. First is Basic, AppStudio Basic. Everyone with a ArcGIS named user account has access to AppStudio Basic. And this is where you can, with no development skills required, configure some of our templates with your maps and your own branding, your own images and things, and create executables that can be then published to the app stores. And so there's no coding going on here, just configuring the templates and going. With AppStudio Standard, you get a developer-friendly tool set, a full IDE for developing apps, which we'll show in a little bit. And we give you the ability to extend those templates or write new apps totally from scratch. And I guess the difference with AppStudio Standard is that you can share with the public, but you can also share and distribute through your enterprise. So if you want to build an app that is not going to the public, that's not going to use public services, that's within your organization, it does require an AppStudio Standard license. And that is a license per developer. It's for the development tools. We're not talking about like licensing the actual apps. It's the developer needs to have AppStudio Standard. So again, the app stores, and they're very important. And AppStudio makes it, I say, easy to publish apps to the Apple App Store and Google Play Store. Who here has published an app to one of these stores, app stores? Was it an easy process? You thought so? Google is, huh? Yeah. Apple? Not so much, yeah. I have a session later today at Demo Theater about, it's kind of a tips and tricks of things that people get hung up on publishing to the app stores, if you're interested in that, because they're just little things you can get hung up on. Particularly, I think my section on Google is like really short, and then the Apple section I have, it's like much longer. So we make it easy to create these apps and make it easier to really get into the App Store. Publishing is almost like the hardest part of the process, it sometimes feels for me. So here's an example of someone going to the app stores. We had, this is in the UK Geological Society. They had probably, I would say it was a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, they had this public vote on, said, hey, public, vote for the 100 best, greatest geological sites in the UK. Beaches, rock formations, hills, all sorts of things, the geosites, as they call them. And they had this thing, and people voted, and they got this big list, and it was this great, beautiful list, and they said, hey, you know what? Someone knew Esri technology and knew about us, and they said, let's make a story map out of that, a map tour. So I don't know if, probably some of you are familiar with story maps as a way to take your maps that usually have a sequence of points that you want to tour around and see, on the map, but also see images and text and information about that. So they took this list of geosites and they made this nice web-based map tour, and then someone said, hey, we could turn that into an app. Let's look at this AppStudio for ArcGIS. And they took that map tour, went to our templates, made some icons and other things, and plugged that in there, and got a nice app, which is now published in the stores. So it was one of those that was on the device that Marika has. So if you're interested, you can look at it. It's the 100 Great Geosites app, and it is available now. So this was kind of a cool that they really started with just this list. And hey, let's visualize this on the web in a nice map tour. And then you know what? Some people would rather see it on a tablet or phone. Let's get it published into the stores so they can see it, and so we can get the word out a little more in case they run across it in the app stores. So now I'm going to go through a demo of using the templates in AppStudio to build an app. And in fact, I'm going to build that app that Marika just showed, the Palm Springs map tour, and show you how you do that. So I'm first going to go to appstudio.arcgis.com is where you go if you haven't been there. You get information about AppStudio. I've already, just to point out, I've already logged into this with my ArcGIS online account. I'm in AppStudio. Nice website, get some information. There's that video that didn't play previously, if you want to check it out. Here is a little bit about how it works. You choose a template, change the settings, test on your devices, and generate installation files. And then you're ready, good to go, and you can publish to the stores. Let's scroll down to the bottom. A little button here says Create Your App. This gives me a choice of 3 templates. Right now we have 3 templates to choose from. We will look at, we're still working on these, kind of making them better, but we will look at adding more templates in the future as well. The first one is the map tour template. Like I said, the UK Geological Society used, like I'm going to show you here for Palm Springs, but we'll scroll down and look at the other templates. Whoop. Look at the other templates as well. We have the map viewer template. This is the idea that, hey, I just have a really nice map and I want to create an app, and they launch that app and they will see my nice map, which has good information that they need. You can use the map viewer template, or you might have a collection of maps. So you can point this template to a group, and in that an ArcGIS Online group, and in that group share 10 different maps. So I think scrolling across there, we have an example of the Utah Department of Natural Resources. They have a group of maps, beautiful maps, and they can put out an app which will be just a gallery to those, easy access to those maps. So it's a versatile template, you can kind of do a single map or multiple. And the last one is our quick report template, and this is for crowdsourcing data. This is for the citizens to crowdsource information. So really it's open to launch the app. This is where I am. I take a picture of something and fill out some information. So the one I think that's scrolling across there is about reporting graffiti in a city. I know we have interested people using this for things like citizen science, so to go out and collect information about animal species or plant species and things like that. This right here is the template. I say it is public because with these templates at a basic level, these do need to be public services. This is really just on crowdsourcing. But let's say you want to use this within your organization, customize it and do some things for it. You can do that. It requires you to have an AppStudio Standard license, and you can very well take this code, do what you want to it, and use it as you need. Now let's go up to that map tour, and I'll say start with this template. Opens up now. It's asking me for some app info. I'm going to give this a title, Palm Springs Map Tour. And then I need a summary. So I could type, but I'm going to I already written down a summary. That's my information. So here I've, actually in this folder, you can kind of see I've created a number of icons that I'm going to use and backgrounds. I'm going to insert this into my app, and I have a little bit of text, a description and a summary I can use and put into my app. There's my summary. All right, now go from those icons. Let me see. I need a thumbnail for my app, so I created a thumbnail. And a nice background image. This image is this is kind of the launch image. So when the app launches and it's loading, you just want it to be a blank, nothing. They don't know what's happening. We have a nice, beautiful image that will load as they start up the app, and then an icon. All these beautiful icons were created by me using PowerPoint. If you want tips on how to create nice icons in PowerPoint, I'm pretty good at it. My boss. My manager Ishmael, he told me, Chris, at AppStudio anyone can build apps, and we can give them the tools, anyone can build apps, but not everyone has good taste. So that's something they might need help with on someone else. It's very true. They can make some really ugly apps, it's very true. So I'm going to change the button. We have when you open this app up, you want a button to get started with it, and so I've got this Get Started green, mid-century modern looking button here to go along with the Palm Springs theme here. Last, I need to choose a map tour. So I've created I'm logged into my account, so you see right there, boom, I have a map tour that I've created, and it's in this ArcGIS Online account. But maybe someone in my organization created one. They create the map tour, but I'm doing the app, so I can search within my organization, select that, or the public, I can search the public. Maybe a friend of mine created the map tour, and he's not even in my organization, but I'm going to use it in my app. Don't go just make some apps out of other people's stuff. know who they are and what it is and get permission to do that. But you do have the ability to use those. And I can select multiple map tours, or you could point this to do a search, and actually there's a way to do a search and have it included where you're pointing to like a group. So let's say that group had 2 map tours you shared into it, and then later on you wanted to add another map tour into your app. You just share that other map tour into that group, and it's just going to pop up in the app. You don't have to even recompile the app or anything. Yes? Yes. If you already have like a map tour created, because this works off of map tours, a story map tour. If you already have that created, it'll just show up and you can use that. Yes. And with the map viewer, if you just have a web maps that are already created, you just launch this and they'll be there for you to pick from. All right. So I've selected that Palm Springs map tour, and on the right you might notice, we're getting a kind of a view here as I've added things, what it will look like. This is not an exact view of what it will look like on the device. We'll see that in a minute, but it's a good representation to kind of give you an idea with the text and the color, look and feel of what it will look like on a phone, tablet, and even a desktop you can run. You can run this on a desktop. You can imagine maybe putting this as a kiosk in your organization. They walk in. There's a interactive kiosk. They can, if it had a touch screen, they could touch it, or with a mouse and keyboard. So you can make apps for desktop as well. I'm going to hit save and finish. And in a second, it's just going to process this for just a second here. Hopefully, yep. And it brings me to what we call the app console. So up at the top here, you see Palm Springs Map Tours App Console. The first thing I can go back and edit those items in my app. I can build an app. I'll get back to that in a second. Customize an app so I can download the code and use it in our desktop development environment to further customize some of the look and feel. Maybe I want that button to be higher or lower on the screen and do some work there. I also have this idea of a landing page. This is if you want to create a kind of a promotional page for your app. So you can go in here and interactively edit the text and features. So as you see already, because of the background I put in there and the icon, it already has some of this look and feel that's familiar to me. But some of these are just generic images. But you can go in and change these and remove things if you like, and then download the code, put it on your own, web server. If you want to promote, if you have it on iOS and Android, you just want a good landing page. Hey, we have this great app. We just kind of pre-populate this information, a destination to people learn about your app. All right, let's go back to this important one here, and that's the build. Now, this is kind of the magic of AppStudio. We have a number of servers in the cloud. We call it the Cloud Make services or servers. And these allow us to select Android, iOS, Linux, Mac, Windows, 32-bit, 64-bit. As you notice, I didn't click on iOS. Because iOS, you cannot request a build unless you actually have a developer certificate from Apple. And I currently don't have one here to do for this testing. Obviously, Esri, we do have some. But even for testing development purposes, you still need to have that developer certificate for iOS. But if I did have that, I could just click here, give it the information, my provisioning file, my certificate, my password, all those fun Apple things that you need, and give it, and it would allow me to do a build of that. Because we in the cloud have machines set up. I'm going to actually hit the build button here. It's going to request these. We have, a separate machine that's going to do the Android build. We have one that's going to do the iOS build. They're Macs, because I'm on a Windows device, but I'm creating an app for iOS. And the only way to do that is you really have to have a Mac somewhere. And so we have some Macs in the cloud that are doing that. Same thing with Mac OS, Windows. And so we take that part away from you. You don't have to worry about making sure your build machine is up to date and things like that. That's all in the cloud. Those are building. I'm going to show you another cool way to look at your app, to test it, and to, in some cases, deploy it. And hopefully my phone here will work. So it's a QR code to my app. There we go. So you're seeing my Android phone here. And I'm going to slide this over. And I'm going to launch AppStudio Player. Now, AppStudio Player is an app available in the app stores and also available on our website for other platforms like Windows and Linux if you need it, and Mac. With AppStudio Player, I can, without downloading the executables, I can play my app inside this player and see what it's going to look like. So you see I've already got some that are downloaded, but I want to download this one I just created. So I got this QR code here. We get this cool side-by-side kind of like Inception effect going on here. And it failed. Come on, don't fail me. Let's try it one more time. Do I need to be closer or further away, Marika?
Further away.
Further away. Oh, there we go. It got it. All right. So what's it doing? It's that QR code is telling you, oh, that was pretty quick. It said, this is the app configuration in the cloud. Download that, and so quickly download it to my device, and it's allowing me to run it on the device. This is exactly how it will run on iOS, Android, whatever, when it is compiled. So this is it really running natively. So boom, I click on that map tour I just created. I scroll through. As we saw before, it's performing pretty well on my end. I'll move this in the front. You can, I'll see. Scroll, look at the map. Click on icons. It'll center on the next one. So, boom, I know how it looks like. I can do the same thing on an iPad, see what it looks like. A great tool for, hey, you're building something and your manager wants to, see what you're looking like. Hey, let me see you get their iPad, log in, or show them this app, and wow, they think it looks great, but they want to change that button. You can just go do your work, upload it again, they kind of re-download it into the player and see it again. So a really easy way to work with a coworker in building the apps and testing them, seeing what they're going to look like on devices, and also in some cases, people will use Player to distribute their apps in an enterprise. They don't want to go to the stores. They can install Player, have them log in with their ArcGIS Online account, and then you just are sharing these app configurations with others, and they will see them in their Player. Then you're in control of when they get updates of how these are distributed. So a cool feature that is pretty unique to AppStudio, and we've got interest in. We've got on the East Coast, we have a consultant who's going to roll this out for some small utilities where he builds the apps. They can install AppStudio Player, and he kind of controls what they have and can easily deploy and build new apps for them. All right, cool stuff. All right, yeah. Let's look. Oh, look, we've got, right here, like Android is completed. I can click that, then it'll start to download the Android APK file, so the Android installation file. It looks like all these are completed except for OS 10. Oh, we need to change that. Oh, it is changed underneath. It says Mac OS, but then it says Mac OS X. That's not correct either, I don't know. They just changed the name to Mac OS. Anyway, 99, okay, it's complete too. So then I can right there, I can download those files. If I had signed those over here with the certificates for like Android and iOS and such, if they're signed correctly with the right certificates, I can then push those into the app stores and make them publicly available. All right, so that's building an app from a template. You didn't see any coding there. I just put in some text, images, and wired it up to my my maps and data. So now we're going to go from that ArcGIS.com app template experience to AppStudio for ArcGIS Desktop Edition and the developer tools. So as I said, we are cross-platform. We have this, I write this app once, build it for all these different platforms. It's like the holy grail of app development, that if we could really truly do this well. There are other apps or other. I will mention that there are other solutions for doing this. Xamarin is one. If you're a .NET developer, you probably know about Xamarin. It's very cool. Xamarin's a little different. It's similar in that you build all your business logic is built in .NET and will go to iOS and Android. Usually, Xamarin developers will their UI layout and how it's going to look. They will build separately for the different platforms, .NET or for Windows, iOS, Android. There's advantages to that. You're going to get something that maybe will look a little more like an Android app and a little more like iOS, but there's also disadvantages to that because you're not maintaining just one layout and one UI. With AppStudio, it is truly universal. What you build for one will work in all others. Not to say you could have different projects, I guess, for iOS and Android. That's up to you. So how do we do this? We do this because of Qt. And that's how it's pronounced. It's Qt is the, I used to always say, but I guess they actually pronounce it Qt. It's a company that provides C++ SDK for building apps. And they've been around for a while. You'll find Qt in things like, what'd you say, your washing machine? Washing machine will have Qt embedded C++ library capabilities in there or whatever. I know that I ran into someone, he used it to build entertainment systems in airplanes when you're sitting there and you're looking at the little screen for hours as you're flying. Sometimes that's built using Qt. In the last couple of years, Qt has put a big emphasis and really shifted to not just the C++ development environment for building applications, but to go cross-platform. To be able to write in Qt or in Qt's a language called QML and using Qt and QML to build cross-platform. And we've taken advantage of that, and that's what really powers and enables us to build AppStudio. Another thing with Qt is on the left there, I say the ArcGIS Runtime SDK. If you're not a developer, you might not know too much about the Runtime SDK, but this is the building blocks, the components that Esri uses to build our apps. So Collector for ArcGIS, Explorer, a Workforce, Operations Dashboard, ArcGIS Earth. These are built using our Runtime SDK, our development components. We also make these components available to others if they want to build custom apps. And we have a Runtime SDK for Qt. And that is the powering underneath AppStudio. AppStudio is kind of this another easy-to-use layer on top of that that gives you lots of other benefits. But because of this, you can make some really advanced GIS apps using AppStudio because you have access to feature editing, to offline capabilities, visualizing the symbology of your apps and things like that, accessing feature services and web maps. That's all here part of, it's all available to you as an AppStudio developer because it is being powered by our Runtime SDK. Just to kind of show you a couple of little things that will come in desktop, and Marika's going to give a demo of this. You can create a new app. We have a number of kind of starter little templates to get going. We have some basic layouts. If you know the basic layout of your app and you want those kind of forms to be built for you, we have a few forms you can start from. And you can, if you sign in, you can search from a growing list of samples, and we've seen people that have taken, this sample, and we can tell sometimes we see app. Oh, okay, they took those 3 samples and combined them together and made it their own and turned it into an app. So we have lots of samples out there and a growing list, and you still have access from the desktop development to that cloud make system in the cloud. So you don't have to set up a Mac for development there, an Android build system. You build on your desktop, you write your code, and then you push those files into your ArcGIS Online account and request a cloud make a build of these in the cloud. So pretty slick. I really just showed you AppStudio Player. Again, helps with rapid development and testing and looking on different devices very easily, and can also be used for enterprise distribution. And one thing I didn't mention is that we give you the code in AppStudio Desktop for AppStudio Player. So if you wanted to brand Player with your organization's look and feel, or maybe add a little functionality, but just put it, hey, this is the county of such and such app player for the employees, you can do that because we give you the code for AppStudio. And then within AppStudio Desktop comes Qt Creator, and this is a full IDE for integrated development environment with debugging capabilities, for writing code, has the context-sensitive help and a lot of tools if you're a developer that benefit you when writing your code. So what is this code that you use in AppStudio? It's called QML, and it's Qt's kind of language. It's a declarative language like HTML, and it incorporates a lot of JavaScript. So if you know JavaScript, you will know the business language and how you write things in QML. It will be really familiar, and you can kind of really write JavaScript right into there. If you know JSON, a lot of it's going to be familiar as well in the way things are declared and the layout of your apps. So it's a powerful application if you're interested in this, or a powerful language to quickly create these cross-platform apps. If you're interested in this and want to know more about QML, that 1:30 session today is for you. AppStudio Advanced is a couple of the creators of this are going to be speaking and going deeper into that. A little current usage on some custom apps out there. So this DDOT Permits just kind of came across. Who developed this sent us to recently. He took a few of our samples and made a really nice looking app that where you zoom to a location, you long click, it does a buffer, and it pulls up all the permits that the DOT has submitted in that area over the last while. You can then get more information about those permits, and he's incorporated some charts and graphs here as well. So it's kind of I don't know much about him, but I know my coworkers worked with him. He said he learned about this at the Dev Summit we had in March, and within a few weeks showed us the sample he had made. And I thought he did a great job of styling it, making it look a little nicer than our samples do. Samples are samples; they're not supposed to be pretty; they're supposed to be functional. And then here's that Trails app that actually Marika just showed you earlier, which is a custom application for finding trails, and that's currently published in the app stores today. If you want to find that, it's Allegheny County, PA is the county that did that. A few more custom apps. We showed Anwani from Abu Dhabi, and then we have Field Notes Earth is an app that Esri made. If you want to get an idea of this, I think has a unique UI. So not every AppStudio app looks the same. This Field Notes Earth has a different UI, allows you to select one or multiple or two places on the Earth, and you then be able to. It gives you statistics about the political and physical geography of those places, and it's interesting. It's all powered by our ArcGIS services and Living Atlas information. Survey 123, if you're familiar with Survey 123, an app from Esri for doing form-based data collection. That is a custom app built with AppStudio. When we roll out Survey 123, which is about every month we have a new, which we're both involved in the release of that, and so every month we got a new release of that going out. And it's built with AppStudio, so it can run on iOS, Android, Windows, and all these different platforms, which is great. And we give you the code to Survey 123 with AppStudio Standard. So if you want to customize the Survey 123 app, you can do so. The last one is, I just want to kind of show this as a cool story from, if you're really talking about enterprise apps, this is from a company called GPSit in New Zealand. They kind of really got on early with AppStudio and have impressed us. They've been using Esri software for years to create a custom solution for a partner or for a customer called Fonterra. Fonterra is the largest dairy exporter in New Zealand. They have all these farms and cows on farms, and they create these custom solutions to go out and do inspections of the streams that go through the farms to make sure the cows aren't polluting them and such. Well, they built that on our old Windows Mobile SDK, and they built it to run on rugged Windows tablets. Well, year and a half ago. Fonterra said, great, we love that app. We want to add these other functionalities, and I want you to make that app work on iPads as well. And so, okay, what are we going to, how are we going to accomplish this? We've got to rewrite this whole thing, and they want us to add this new stuff. They want us to put it work on iPads, and about that time they came across AppStudio, and they've built this app that does, it's very focused. It's for this one task, but it runs on an Android tablet, an iPad like they needed to, and a Windows tablet as well. And what it's doing here is taking data offline for a specific farm, and then you can go out and you can do things like, as you see here, do a buffer around a stream, change the distance of the buffer, right side, left side. I always love that when they go right side, left side buffer on the stream. That's cool. And then they, boom, enter some more attribute information. So a really customized app built using AppStudio. All right, enough of me talking. Let's switch back over to Marika, and she's going to give a demo of the desktop development tools in AppStudio.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay, so this is AppStudio on the desktop. You can install from the website that Chris showed you earlier. You can go to the download page and download this on your device. Whilst you're operating with a basic license, you can download apps that you had created online. You can continue editing them on the desktop, but it's not until you want to then upload it to either share with someone else or use the CloudMake service that you need to have that standard license. So the first app I'll show you just really briefly to complete the circle is the Palm Springs app that Chris showed you. When he was on the web, he had a choice to customize that app. If he did that, it would download it onto the desktop and make it available here. So you'll see if I click on that app, it's going to look exactly the same as what he showed on the device. You get started, and you have the list of images and a map that you can use to browse. Exactly the same on the desktop as it is on the device, except the internet's a little slower. All right, well, here we go, there it refreshes. So exactly the same app on the desktop as it is on the device. But what I would like to show you is creating a new app. So here at the very top, we have a menu to choose a new app. As described before, there are some starter apps. I'll just show you here in the last bracket here with the enterprise app. So this is the way that you can start by using Survey123, Connect or Player as a template and customize it for your own organisation. They're available to you with a standard license. I'm going to start a little simpler and use the Hello World Runtime app. So I'll give you a head start on what it is that I'm going to create. I'm going to take this app and I'm going to put two maps in it. You'll see by default the app that's created, my two maps here. If I launch it, I click the right button. It's got a title bar. It shows a map with some basic map navigation controls, and I can zoom in on my map, go back to the home site. This is the basic Hello World app, but I'm going to go away and make some edits to it. So to edit my two maps app, I launch it in Qt Creator. Thinking about it. And this is what the code of the app looks like. There's 6 files here. Most of them are actually files to do with the item that's going to be created in ArcGIS Online. The one file that is the app is this hello world.qml. So .qml was the language that Chris described earlier. And we'll have a little look at what's inside the file. There's a bunch of import statements, and this is really, the first half are all of the Qt components that are available to me. The second half are the AppStudio components and runtime. And you can see that the app is comprised of an app component, and Chris described earlier as a declarative language. It's basically every component has a bunch of properties, and you define what they are. It's an app of a certain size. It contains a rectangle, which is the title bar, so that blue panel at the top, which has a specific height and colour. It has some text in it. And you can see it's quite readable for someone who's not particularly a developer. It's literally a list of components. And we're going to move down here to the map component. Most of it, the information here is just describing how the map's going to look. There's actually only one line here that describes what map is actually going to be displayed. So what I want to show you is a little bit about how QML, I suppose, interacts. And I'm going to take a copy of this map and I'm going to go put it in another file. So I'm going to create a new file over here, new QML file. Call it my map. I'm going to insert the map in here. The only thing I'll leave behind in the main file is the ID of the map and how it's positioned on the screen. The other thing I need to just drag over, it will be these import statements. And what I've done now is I've componentized my map. I've given it a custom name, and now in my app over here, I can remove all this extra information because I'm going to refer to my new custom component, my map. What's this going to do? Well, actually, if I run the app, you'll see that the app, I failed. I think I need one more of them. There we go. My map should look exactly the same as it did before. That's okay. But what benefit does it give me? Well, now I can actually reuse that component a second time and have two maps. I'm going to have a map on the left and the map on the right. All of the other information is going to be drawn from my map component. Now, if I want to see them two side by side, let's keep the left map, remove the anchor, the right anchor, so it sticks over on the left-hand side, and the right map will keep it on the right. The only thing we would need to add at this point is describe how wide I want each map. I want them each to be the width, to be half of the width of the parent. So you can see it's quite, I'm writing in English here, I'm not really writing in fancy code. Width, so let's make the width of this one also half the width. What will that look like? I've got a map on the left that's anchored to the left. I've got a map on the right that's anchored to the right, and they're both about half, well, they are exactly half the width of my app. When do you usually have two maps in an app? Often it's when you have perhaps an overview map or an extent. And they often, maybe you want to see the same thing in two different types of maps. So the first thing I think I need to do is join them together. And I would do that by describing the extent of one to be the same as the extent of the other. So let's make the extent of the one on the right, map.left, the same as the extent of the left one. So let's have a look what that looks like. So now if I zoom on the map on the left, after it redraws, you'll see the one on the right changes. That's pretty good. That was one line of code. But the fact that they're both the same map background isn't very useful to me. So the last thing I'd like to show you is that even though we made a component and we're reusing all of the stuff that's inside this component for each map, you can override it. So I'll take just one line here and put it in just one of my maps, maybe the one on the right. And let's just change the base map that's being used here to the world imagery map. Let me get rid of that bracket. Okay, Control Alt R. There we go. That was a funky refresh. So they're in about 5 lines of code. I've created an app, 2 maps, 2 different base maps, ready for me to go away and change title bars and put some other goodness on my map.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you.
Quick question. Yes? Good question.
You will, the question was, when you deploy that application, you'll need a runtime license. You'll need a runtime developer key in there, but that's not using any advanced functionality, so it's a basic runtime license. So there is no charge for deploying an app such as that. The thing that we charge for is if you're doing certain kinds of offline editing, syncing of data using our sync technology, doing offline geocoding, and geoprocessing, kind of some more advanced things that will require runtime licensing for that. All right. The question? Oh, yes.
I noticed that when you were scrolling in the map on the left, automatically scrolled the map on the right. Is it necessary to have your 2 maps be at the same project location, or could they be 2 different? Is it possible to have 2 different locations?
Oh, absolutely.
Just pointing to 2 different services. Yep. Don't need to be in, yeah, they could be on totally different locations.
I only did that demo because it was 1 line. But absolutely, yes.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to finish up here. We got just a couple minutes here. Talk a little bit about AppStudio licensing. All the things, that Basic can do is what we kind of saw was using the templates, building for those different environments, kind of getting you ready to have an app that can put into the app stores. Standard adds being able to extend those templates, getting access to the fully use the desktop development tools that Marika just showed, as well as like the Qt creator and things. And you need standard to distribute to your app through the enterprise. If you want to put it just within your organization, not with the public, you do need standard. And standard, as I mentioned before, is licensed this is licensing per developer, per AppStudio developer. The standard licensing works. If you have any questions about standard, we'll take questions here in a minute, or come up and ask me. I want to go over a little bit about what we've worked on and what's coming. So what's new, and the big release was in March. We had the template for Survey 123. That was important to a number of our customers, and we think people are really going to enjoy that. We've already have a few that are customizing it for their needs. And then the one just last week we released is Portal for ArcGIS. This is, again, important for many people, Portal users, and this allows them to store their app configurations into their portal and manage those and share apps in the portal with other users that might want to log in with ArcGIS Player. So if you have ArcGIS Server and you have your own portal, you host it all on premises, the 1.2 version is important for you. Note that the ability to do that cloud make, to do the build in the cloud, is not, we don't ship you a stack of laptops with a Mac and everything to do your own. Sorry, people have asked us for that. I don't think we're going to anytime soon. But so to build in the cloud right now, so you can still do a cloud. We have documentation on how to set up your own build machines, and you can still use the desktop tools and do your own. If you totally need to be behind the firewall and can't push any app configurations up there to the cloud, you can still do it. Or there's a workaround where you could take that out of your portal, put it into, if you have hopefully an ArcGIS Online account, and do the builds there to create your executables. So there's a little bit of a workaround, that makes sense. We also support Qt 5.6, latest runtime, improved our templates, our documentation, and a little work in the native device support. What are we working on? Really the big thing is the Quartz runtime. If you're a runtime developer, you've heard about Quartz. It's the next generation of our runtime technology. It brings a lot of cool things like support for vector tile base maps, some really compressed, beautiful base maps that look, and zoom in, look nice. They can be styled. A new offline a new offline framework for taking data offline. Some good things come with Quartz. That's where a lot of our work the rest of this year is going to go into, just moving to that Quartz We're also looking at and doing some R&D and looking at being able to more widgetize the components of AppStudio apps. So people want a little more of a web app builder experience, so they've asked. So we're looking at ways of doing that, where you can choose, I want these 4 different kind of widgets to make up my app and allow you more customization there. So we're working on that, as well as improving the templates and documentation. I threw up these a couple of AppStudio sessions if you're interested in seeing more about advanced, what you can do with custom development and QML and stuff. That is the advanced session today at 1:30. We also have if you look in the schedule, there's also a session called building apps in a snap using templates. I'm doing that. Don't come to that because you just saw earlier today what I'm going to show, so don't come to that session. You've already seen it. Unless you really want to see that Palm Springs app be created again, otherwise don't come. But then after that, I am doing a demo theater downstairs, publishing AppStudio apps into the Google and Apple stores. That is the tips and tricks process about getting apps into the publishing process. We're not really going to spend much time in AppStudio. We're going to talk about what Apple requires, what Google requires, and things like that. That's at 1:30 or 3:30 today downstairs in Demo Theater 8. That's about wraps it up. I think if you have the little events app, fill out the survey on this. You give us all, 5 stars or whatever. Just go down the list, hit submit. We're good. And our raises are based solely on those stars. It's a weird system that Esri. So, and again, Q&A. I know it's going to lunch here soon, but one more thing. We have a mobile SIG at noon in room 3, I believe. We're gonna have a couple customers talk about their using Esri apps and stuff. It's a good event, sponsored by Trimble. I think there's some box lunches there if you're interested. But mobile SIG in room, it's 2 or 3. You'll find it kind of that way. So, any questions? Yep.
So, can you publish through the App Store an app that's only available to a certain group of people but not within an enterprise? So if I was making something for a property owners association, maybe they've got 3,000 users but don't want that information to be out to the rest of the world. So you get to them but restrict access to the information in the app.
So you want it to go through the app stores, but just to that group of people.
Property owners association, 3,000 users, but they don't necessarily want the neighborhood next to them to know.
Yep.
Whatever.
Yeah. One way to restrict that is that it's there, everyone downloads it, but you don't get any information unless you sign in, and you sign in with the proper credentials. That's how most things work. I know, you can, restrict like Apple allows you to do a beta, actually Google too, to roll out, but for a permanent app to say that it's just for this group of people, yeah, I don't know exactly. In the enterprise world, maybe.
Don't they have apps on the App Store where then you would need a credential to actually use it?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's exactly
that's what we're saying.
So
Yeah, allowing you to forcing them to log in with some type of credentials to actually get the information. That's up to you. Well, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to do that, no. And they would either have to be, you would buy them a named user account, which you might not want to do because it's a cost, but that's one solution. Actually, you're not allowed to do that either because they need to be part of your organization. You have to look at different ways of setting up a login and way of storing that information. Yeah, I don't know if we have that.
Can you just give them a link that they can, like you do for the
So if your app is an Android app, you can actually host that APK on your own website.
Yep.
And make it available to them. The only thing is you can't do that with iOS.
Yeah, iOS, they have to get it from the store. And that store is going to be available to everyone. It's going to be, the app's going to be available to anyone. So.
That Property Owners Association buys their own ArcGIS online.
Yep. Service. That's doing it easy. What you're doing is totally possible. It's just, it's going to take more development tools and probably some login and credential stuff outside of Esri's technology even to do that.
So it's not possible.
Sure, it's possible. but
Absolutely
it's-
possible, but you just need to do more work.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the licensing for the standard, is that like standalone, or can you put on every license and software make it concurrent?
It's not concurrent. It is licensed. You can move it around a bit. I will let you know that. But it is. You get a license for it, and you in ArcGIS. The way you manage that license, I don't know if you've like in ArcGIS Online or your portal in like assigning if you're a manager, an organizational manager or administrator. You assign like a license for Pro to someone, an entitlement, so there's their username. This person has access to ArcGIS Pro, they can log in ArcGIS Pro. It works the same way as you get from customer service this license file, you put into your ArcGIS Online or your portal, and you assign that license. The administrator will assign that license to that user.
Online management of the license, right?
Yeah, online management license. You can, we don't, if you have two developers and them sharing one back and forth, we would prefer you buy two, obviously, but it could be done. But really, it's meant for one. It's not concurrent, really.
All right, the other question, I saw Windows 32, Windows 64, is that through the Windows Store, that is standalone install for Windows?
So they're standalone installs right now. They're not Windows Store installs.
So on
In
the
the-
Windows Phone, it doesn't support that, because I didn't see it.
So Windows Phone is unique because we have Windows Phone for Survey 123. I think it was more of a limit.
We don't have a runtime.
Yeah,
Windows
it's the Windows Phone runtime underset.
We do actually have a player for Windows Phone, but it's not something that we're making public because you can't run your ArcGIS runtime apps in there. If you have an app that doesn't use runtime, you could, but
So
Phone OS or whatever.
yeah, we don't have ArcGIS
Yeah, we don't.
runtime for Windows Phone OS.
And I can tell you right now with Microsoft's strategy on that OS that we're not going to do anything there. Now, Windows Universal Apps through the Windows Store, in the future, I believe, and after this course and things, we will look at that. So having people get their app through the store, yes. But
More question, you said in the standard you can deploy to enterprise, but the free version you can use that player to deploy to enterprise, right?
technically, yes, but not licensed. You're not supposed to.
Is that when you demonstrated?
Yes. So it's possible. We're not stopping you from doing that. But to really deploy apps in your enterprise, it requires that you on a paper or something, it requires that you have this standard license. But yeah, technically you can just do it. But not a whole lot of people want to deploy a bunch of map tours into their enterprise. They want something they're going to be collecting data or something like that.
This was one over here. Did you have a question?
When you were doing the preview, you couldn't do iOS. Is that the only hitch with iOS? You can't do the preview? Or
You can preview, yes. What you couldn't do without entering more information was build the executable file. So to be able to build that IPA file for iOS, you need to insert your developer certificate information.
Yeah,
From Apple.
From Apple. You need to pay Apple to be an Apple developer, which is like $100 a year. You need to get a certificate from them, and then you convert that certificate into a P12 file and create a provisioning file as well. And insert those things into there with your correct passwords, and then it'll let you build.
Yep.
Yeah. I think Google is 20
25.
or 25.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even know if it's a year with Google. Is it every year or just?
Yeah.
Is it every year? Okay. So, yeah, a little cheaper.
And then one more over here.
I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit about incorporating other kinds of web apps into the AppStudio. Like I saw that storyboard lends itself really well, but if we have customized widgets that we've coded in other templates of the web apps that are available, is there a way to incorporate them as well? Or can you I also see the value in restarting that whole process in this housing structure with the web maps, like the way you were doing it.
Yeah.
Editing the code there.
Those widgets that are probably written in JavaScript, right? The web apps, those won't just work in AppStudio, the skills you know JavaScript will translate over, and that's nice. And then if in certain cases, and I've kind of seen, is that you can actually make an app, and hey, if I got this one web map that's kind of unique and has these widgets, and it scales nicely on a mobile device, you can do a web view.
Yep, so there's a web view component. You can drop the whole thing right into the web view.
It's basically like within your app, they click that button, and actually they're looking at a browser inside of your app, and that's part of Qt, and that's web view. And I've seen our developers done some nice things. There was a certain kind of web service that our runtime didn't support yet, but JavaScript did. So he said, when we hit that web service, when we hit a map that has that, it doesn't open in regular, it opens in a web view, so they still have access to it, and it looks pretty nice. It's just you don't know exactly how it's going to scale on every device, but yeah.
If you use a quick report in AppStudio to get crowdsourced information on situations anywhere, in order to see that information, would you have to open your ArcGIS online app every day to look at it? Or is there a way to get notifications when someone's added a new crowdsourcing point to that quick report app?
To get notifications, I don't know of any easy notification tool. I mean, we have a wealth of ways to look at that data. You can create a cool operations dashboard, which has these nice buttons, and every time someone does a new report, you have that running, and boom, you see that changing, and that will check, every few seconds to check on that. I mean, we have tools like operations dashboard to give you that view, but to get like push notifications, that's going to be some. What's that? Explorer could look at that. Yeah, as well.
I think dashboard would probably be your best.
Dashboard probably the best at live data coming in, for sure, giving you a nice view. That runs on Windows machines, but if you want like a phone, an email, or something, that's a whole nother. There's probably some tool out there that can read a REST endpoint and give you updates when it updates. But
is that a question for online?
Online? Yeah, it is more of a question for ArcGIS Online.
Down to the showcase?
Yeah, I want to get notifications when this feature service updates. Yep. Any questions?
No.
So I've never developed an app, but what I'm looking at is the Forest Service. We have a very large constituted organization.
Yeah.
I don't know who has
it. We know a few of those guys. Yeah.
Pardon?
We know a few of those Forest Service mobile guys. Yeah.
So there are some that actually have the ability to push the button and publish things. How can I find out who they are?
TC?
Talk to TC. Yeah. Do you know TC? Yeah. I'm sure.
The other thing is that, so they push us towards the iOS devices, yet they're the hardest to develop for. And so I want to play with something and try to take a story map and turn it into one of these things. But I only have an iPad. We don't have very many Android devices.
So you can still, use the player on your iPad. You're still going to be able to, it's going to look exactly like it's going to look.
That's what I didn't understand.
You can, for testing and see what it's going to look like, and maybe proof of concept to your manager, hey, we should go further and get an Apple developer account and push this out.
Okay.
Use Player to.
So just as far as the preview, and then at that point you're pretty much done.
Yeah. All right.
It's the insanity. How much permission to do it? Gosh.
I know.
Use your own personal device.
Yeah, and then we come across a lot of organizations where they can build this thing and make it great, but they're like, that $100 developer account is like the hurdle they can't get past. It's like
it's $100, but it's
and just getting legal to approve of it and all these things. That's like the hardest.
Never ask them.
Yeah.
Never ask them.
All right. Well, any other questions come up here? We're going to pack up and head out.